It was the kind of Florida morning that clung to your skin. The kind where the sun showed no mercy, radiating heat off every surface like it had a vendetta against the asphalt. The gas station sat off Interstate 95 just north of Jacksonville, nestled between a car wash and an abandoned lot with waist-high weeds and a rusted-out fridge. There were 4 pumps, a convenience store with a flickering red open sign, and a few parked vehicles. A pickup truck with Texas plates, a dusty minivan with a broken taillight, and a gleaming white semi idling by the diesel lane, its trailer humming faintly as if it were alive. Tanisha Cole adjusted the grip on her daughter's hand as they stepped out of the convenience store. The door swung shut behind them with a hollow clack. Her other hand slipped casually into the pocket of her gray hoodie, fingers brushing the mic clipped to the inner seam of her collar. The earpiece, a thin black loop, tucked neatly behind her curls, but the wire had slipped slightly from the neckline. She made a mental note to fix it before they crossed the lot. Beside her, little Amara skipped once, then looked up with a toothy grin. "Mama, can I eat the candy now?" Tanisha smiled, but didn't stop scanning the parking lot. Her eyes lingered on the semi. "Not yet, baby. Wait till we're in the car." "But it's hot," Amara whined, fanning herself with the tiny pink Hello Kitty wallet she'd begged for last week. "I know it is," Tanisha said. Her tone was warm, but firm. "Just hold my hand." Amara sighed dramatically, but obeyed. They crossed slowly toward their car, a silver Ford Fusion parked under the limited shade of the station's old air pump. Tanisha kept her head low, moving deliberately, no sudden turns. Her eyes flicked to the rearview mirrors of every car they passed. No one was following. No sign of contact. No new movement from the truck. But that was the trick, wasn't it? Everything could go sideways in 3 seconds. Behind her soft, motherly demeanor was the alertness of someone who hadn't slept more than 4 hours at a time in years. Every step she took, every breath she drew had purpose. She wasn't just watching the truck. She was feeling the timing, listening to the silence, trusting the pattern she'd studied for 2 months straight. She was ready, and then she heard it. The voice crackled into her earpiece so softly it barely registered. "Target vehicle identified. Package confirmed. Proceed to position. Confirm when ready." Tanisha didn't respond, not with words. Instead, she tugged gently on her hoodie's drawstring twice. That was her signal. Go. In the distance, a black SUV began creeping forward from behind the convenience store. Tanisha guided Amara to the car, opened the door, and helped her inside. The booster seat clicked. She handed her daughter a water bottle, kissed her forehead, shut the door, and turned. The truck driver had exited the cab now. White male, bald, cargo pants. He leaned against the hood, fiddling with a cigarette. She saw the faint bulge under his shirt. Concealed weapon. No eye contact. Exactly what the intel had described. She was 20 feet away when it happened. "Hey!" a sharp voice called out. Tanisha paused, not because she was startled, but because she had been trained to calculate threat levels faster than most people could blink. 3 men approached from the other side of the lot. Officers. Local. White. Standard uniforms. Badges displayed. Sidearms holstered but ready. One of them had his hand near his taser. Another squinted directly at her chest. And then he saw the wire. Tanisha cursed inwardly. They had made her. Not the traffickers. Not the target. But the cops. "Stop right there," one shouted. "Hands up. Now." Tanisha raised her hands slowly, palms forward. She glanced toward the truck. The driver was watching now. Alert. Edging toward the cab. This couldn't happen. Not now. "Officer," she said calmly. "I'm with." "Drop to your knees," the shortest cop shouted. Tanisha froze. "My daughter is in the car," she said, voice low but firm. "You're making a mistake." One of them rushed forward, yanked the car door open. Amara screamed. "Don't touch her," Tanisha shouted. But it was too late. A second officer shoved her from behind. She fell to her knees, skin scraping against the sun-baked pavement. Her hands were twisted behind her back. Rough fingers found the wire and ripped it from her collar. "Got a device," someone yelled. Another voice. "Suspect is armed." "No," she tried to say, but a knee drove into her back. A gun pressed against the base of her skull. Amara sobbed uncontrollably. And Tanisha, Agent Cole, FBI, active field status, felt her heart breaking in real time. "This is a mistake," she whispered. "I'm FBI. I'm undercover. You're blowing my op." The three men didn't listen, or didn't care. One of them spat. "Another domestic terrorist. Probably watching law enforcement trying to ambush us. We're not stupid." Tanisha closed her eyes. Not out of fear, out of calculation, because she could already feel it happening. The truck revving, the driver realizing something was off. The op was collapsing. Then came the rumble. Not the truck, not more officers, but the roar of black SUVs. 4 of them, speeding into the gas station from all sides. Brakes screamed. Doors flew open. Tactical boots hit pavement. Guns drawn. Federal agents. "Put the weapon down." The 3 officers froze. The gun at Tanisha's neck trembled. A voice shouted from one SUV. "Release that woman immediately. She is an active undercover agent." Tanisha felt the grip on her arm slacken. The officers began to stammer. What do you mean FBI? She had a wire." "Exactly," said the agent, now rushing toward them. "That's how undercover ops work. Genius." The driver of the truck tried to bolt, but it was too late. The federal agent swarmed him, dragged him from the cab, slammed him into the pavement, and recovered 2 underage girls locked in the back of the trailer. The gas station was chaos. Patrons ducked behind their cars. Cell phones filmed every second. Tanisha stood up slowly, her arms sore, her hoodie torn at the shoulder. Her knees were scraped raw. Her hands trembled, but her eyes stayed steady. She turned to her daughter, who had already run toward her and wrapped both arms around her waist. "Mama," Amara sobbed. "They hurt you." Tanisha knelt, ignoring the sting in her legs, and hugged her daughter tight. "I'm okay, baby. I'm okay now." Fellow agent Vargas reached her. "Are you hurt?" "I'm fine." "You sure?" "No," she admitted. "But I will be." The 3 officers who had attacked her stood off to the side now, pale and silent, surrounded by federal agents. "You assaulted a federal agent during an active op," one of the tactical team leaders barked. "You almost got a child killed, and you compromised a months-long surveillance operation. But we didn't know. You didn't ask." That night, the footage flooded social media. A bystander's video, shaky but clear, showed the entire event. A mother walking with her child. The sudden shouts. The officers yanking the little girl away, forcing the woman down. The gun. The cries. The arrival of federal agents. The takedown. The tears. Within hours, hashtags trended. And in homes across America, people saw something they couldn't forget. Not just the violence, but the restraint. Not just the mistake, but the price of it. Tanisha sat on her couch in the quiet of her apartment, her knees bandaged, her daughter asleep in the next room. She stared at the television, muted, as the news anchors dissected every frame of the footage. But she wasn't watching. Her mind was still at that gas station, still on her knees, still feeling the heat of the pavement and the cold barrel at her neck, still hearing her daughter scream. But more than that, she was thinking about what would have happened, what could have happened, if the backup had been 10 seconds later, or if the bystander hadn't filmed, or if she'd been alone. She closed her eyes and saw her daughter's face. That was why she did it. That was why she couldn't stop. The bureau offered her leave. Time off. Counseling. She declined. "I've got work to do," she said, because she knew that somewhere, on another stretch of highway at another gas station, behind the tinted windows of another semi, another child was waiting. And they didn't have time for her to rest. Not yet. It had been 3 days since the takedown at the gas station. 3 days since Tanisha Cole, undercover FBI agent and single mother, had been forced to her knees in front of her child, mistaken for a criminal by men who never asked a single question. 3 days since the whole world watched her on their screens. Hoodie torn, gun to her neck, and calm in the face of injustice. 3 days, and already the world had begun to move on. The morning news cycles were covering a new scandal, something about leaked memos and political donors. The hashtags had dropped a few places on trending lists. A few well-meaning commentators called for police training reform. One viral clip from a cable debate show asked whether she had looked suspicious. Others argued over jurisdiction, protocol, appearance, but none of them talked about the sound. The sound a child makes when they watch their mother being pulled away at gunpoint. Tanisha Cole couldn't forget that sound. It came back in dreams. It echoed when she poured coffee. It played in her head when she tied her daughter's shoelaces, when she locked the front door, when she stood too long under the hot water in the shower. Amara was coping in her own way, clinging tighter, asking more questions, watching her mother constantly as if afraid she might vanish the second she blinked. "Are the bad guys gone, Mama?" she asked every night. "Yes, baby," Tanisha always said. "They're gone." But that was only half true. The Washington field office was quieter than usual when she walked in on Monday morning. Her knees were still stiff under her slacks. She wore a navy blouse and black blazer, hair pinned back, and the thinnest line of eyeliner, her armor. As she passed by the rows of desks and agents hunched over case files, a few looked up. Some nodded respectfully. Others lowered their eyes. Vargas met her by the elevator. "You didn't have to come in yet," he said. "You've got full clearance for paid leave." "I'm not here for pity leave," she replied. "There's a raid scheduled in Tallahassee this week. I want in." He studied her face. "You sure you're ready?" "Doesn't matter." He nodded once. "I'll tell Mitchell you're back on rotation." As they walked toward the conference room, he added, "Internal Affairs is finishing the review. The officers have been suspended pending inquiry." "Suspended," she said. Vargas exhaled. "Local jurisdiction. They're not federal. You know how this works." "Yeah," she said. "That's the problem." The conference room was already filling up. Maps projected on the wall. A timeline scrawled on a whiteboard. Photos of 3 men, 2 drivers, 1 recruiter, all tied to the trafficking ring they had been chasing for months. The takedown at the gas station was just one branch of a much larger tree, and this time they were ready to cut the roots. But Tanisha wasn't looking at the photos. She was looking at the gaps. There was still someone missing. Later that day, as the office thinned and agents disappeared into their routines, Tanisha returned to her desk and pulled out the file she hadn't shown anyone. It was her own. Not the Bureau's version. Her own notes. Printed emails. Surveillance transcripts. Handwritten details from dozens of late nights. There was a man they'd been circling around for almost a year now, known only as Hawk. A suspected handler, broker, and ghost. No verified photo. No fingerprints. But the same name appeared again and again in whispered conversations, burner phone logs, and coded text threads. She believed he was at the top of the Florida pipeline. She also believed he had people on the inside. Every time they got close, the target disappeared just hours before the raid. Someone was leaking. She tapped her pen twice on the folder, then opened her secure laptop and began typing. She didn't trust official channels anymore, not completely. Not after what had happened. She'd worked this part alone. Because Hawk wasn't just another trafficker. He was the one who nearly got her killed. That night, she tucked Amara into bed, reading from a worn-out copy of The Secret Garden. It was their tradition, even though Amara sometimes fell asleep halfway through. As she closed the book and brushed her daughter's curls aside, Amara stirred. "Mama." "Yes." "Did the other cops say sorry yet?" Tanisha paused. "No," she said softly. "Why not?" "Sometimes people don't know how to say sorry." Amara opened one eye. "You always say it when I get hurt." Tanisha kissed her forehead. "That's because I mean it." Amara drifted off. Tanisha stood in the doorway for a while, watching her daughter breathe. Then she closed the door and walked to the kitchen table where her laptop waited. She had work to do. The next morning, a package arrived at the bureau. No return address. No markings. Inside, a burner phone, a USB, and a note. "You don't know who you're dealing with. But we know you. Walk away, Agent Cole. Or next time, it won't just be your knees on the pavement." Vargas slammed the file shut. Security just reviewed the footage. It was left outside the back entrance, same route you use. Tanisha didn't flinch. "They're scared," she said. "They're watching you," Vargas replied. She stood. "Let them." 2 nights later, she was in a parking garage downtown, sitting in her car, engine off, laptop balanced on the passenger seat. She had decrypted the USB herself. Inside were surveillance photos of her, her daughter, her building, her car, all dated within the last 6 weeks. They'd been watching her the entire time, even before the gas station. One photo was different. A man standing at a payphone wearing a baseball cap and a mechanic's uniform. The timestamp matched a moment during the Jacksonville op when the Bureau's feed had briefly gone dark. He had his back to the camera, but she recognized the build, the way he leaned, the casual slouch that disguised readiness. This was Hawk. It had to be. She isolated the background, cross-checked the location. It was an old truck repair shop 20 miles outside of Tampa. Closed 6 years ago. Still had a landline. That's where she'd go next. No team. No op. Just her. She told no one. Not even Vargas. She left Amara with her sister in Miami, kissed her goodbye, and drove through the night. The truck shop sat at the edge of a forgotten town, 3 miles of gas stations, pawn shops, and broken windows. She parked behind a dumpster, tucked her Glock into her waistband, and moved in silence. The sun was just rising, spilling pale light across the gravel lot. The building was quiet. Too quiet. She slipped in through a side door, flashlight low, breath even. Inside, oil stains, dust, silence. And then, footsteps. She pressed herself against the wall, ears straining. A figure appeared in the hall. Not Hawk. A kid. Maybe 17. Pale. Thin. Scared. He turned and ran. Tanisha chased him. Out the door. Across the gravel. Into the arms of a second man, taller, older, armed. Tanisha drew her gun. Let him go. The man didn't. Then a click behind her. She froze. Hawk. I told you to walk away, he said. His voice was smooth. Southern. Cruel. She didn't turn. I told you I don't scare easy, she replied. A pause. Then laughter. I like you, he said. You got grit. She spun. He ducked. Gunfire. She dove behind a tire stack. Bullets whined. The boy screamed. She shouted, I'm FBI. Drop your weapons now? They didn't. She rolled, fired twice. One man fell. The other ran. She chased Hawk into the back room, empty except for a crate of cell phones and passports. A hidden door creaked. She followed. Stairs. Then darkness. She emerged into a room filled with monitors. Footage. Girls. Cages. She choked. This was bigger than she thought. She turned. Hawk was gone. Back at HQ, Vargas was furious. You went alone? I had to, she said. They're watching us. I couldn't risk a leak. He paced. You could have died. She looked him in the eye. I almost did. At a gas station. In front of my kid. Because nobody asked the right question. Silence. Then, did you find him? No, she said. But I saw what he's protecting. She placed a hard drive on the table. And whispered, we need to burn it all down. That night, she sat on the couch with Amara, watching Moana. But her eyes weren't on the screen. They were on the window. And the world outside. She would finish this. Not for the Bureau. Not for the headlines. For the girls in cages. For the mother who wouldn't get a second chance. And for the child who still believed her mom was a superhero. The sun had just begun to rise when Tanisha Cole opened her eyes. Her apartment was quiet, too quiet. Amara still slept in the next room, curled around a stuffed panda, her little chest rising and falling with the rhythm of innocence. But Tanisha hadn't known true rest in years. And after the warehouse, sleep had become a thing of war, not peace. The images haunted her, the room, the screens, the cages. The sound of that boy's footsteps echoing through the metal hall. The unfinished breath in Hawk's voice before he disappeared behind a wall she didn't see coming. She'd stood in the heart of a monster's machine, and he had watched her do it. She rolled onto her side, grabbing her phone from the nightstand. For missed calls from Vargas. 2 encrypted messages. 1 word in bold. Meeting. She got dressed in silence. Black slacks. White button-up. No jewelry. No smile. She didn't bother with makeup. No mask today. The moment she walked into the Bureau's Washington field office, she could feel the shift in atmosphere. Agents nodded. Whispered. Some even looked away. Tanisha walked through it all, unblinking. In the main conference room, Vargas was pacing, coffee in hand, tie loosened. Mitchell was already seated, flanked by 2 grim-faced executives from Homeland. She closed the door behind her. You brought it to us? Mitchell said without greeting. I brought it home, she replied. She placed the hard drive on the table. Vargas leaned forward, inserting the drive into a secure laptop. Dozens of folders appeared. Some marked with initials. Others with dates. A few with only numbers, shipment logs, she guessed. Photos, video feeds, drone captures, handwritten rosters, location tags pinned to every state line from Florida to the Northeast. This is a digital command center, Mitchell said under his breath. It's a supply chain, Tanisha added. Not of goods. Of people. One folder bore a name. Orchid. She clicked it open. Inside, passports. IDs. Names of girls between 13 and 17. Their countries of origin, Venezuela, Honduras, Haiti. Some from the U.S. too. Runaways. Fosters. Forgotten. Tanisha's hand tightened into a fist. This is bigger than Hawk, Vargas said. This is federal trafficking at a scale we haven't touched before. One Homeland rep nodded. We need to escalate. Task force level. Multi-agency. No, Tanisha said. They looked at her. You'll get leaks. We go wide, we lose him again. Then what do you propose? Mitchell asked. She looked him in the eye. Give me a team. Small. Clean. No press. No politics. Let me build it my way. There was a long silence. Then Mitchell spoke. You'll need to brief the director. Fine, she said. But he doesn't run this. I do. The briefing took place 2 days later in a private operations suite under FBI headquarters. Director Orson had a poker face made of granite, a war veteran's voice, and an aide who rarely blinked. Tanisha stood at the head of the table, maps behind her, her voice steady as stone. Hawk isn't just a trafficker. He's a broker. A facilitator. The infrastructure we're seeing isn't just about kidnapping, it's distribution, digital laundering, legal manipulation. These girls are moved like inventory. Their data is forged and buried faster than our systems can find them. Every time we follow procedure, he's 2 steps ahead. He's got eyes somewhere high. The room was still. Then she added, and I'm not going to chase his smoke anymore. I'm setting fire to the house. Orson looked at her long and hard. You've got 30 days, he said. 30's all I need. The next week, she assembled her team. She chose 4. Vargas, dependable, loyal, and the only one who knew her before the job took her soul. Agent Nicole Hanley, cybersecurity specialist with a knack for disappearing online, 29, sharp as a blade, and just as quiet. Agent Leo Rivera, linguist, undercover veteran, former DEA with a deep network of street-level intel. And Sam, the boy from the warehouse. She found him again. Under federal protection now. He was 17 but spoke like someone who had lived too many lives. You sure about this? Vargas asked. He knows their language, she replied. Their routes. Their fear. She met with Sam privately. Told him the truth. Made no promises. But she did give him one thing, power. You don't owe them anything, she said. But if you want to take back your story, help us write the rest. He agreed. The mission was named Orchid Reclaim. The team moved like ghosts. They shut off bureau tracking for field ops. Met in motels. Used burner laptops. Shared files in fragments across disconnected servers. They hid a safe house in Tallahassee. A storefront in Charleston. A fake foster registry in Durham. Each time, they moved fast. Quiet. Surgical. Each time, Hawk was gone. But they left scars behind. Seized ledgers. Freed girls. Collapsed pipelines. And each time, the silence on the wire grew deeper. Then 3 weeks in, they got a break. Nicole traced an unregistered IP bouncing through a weather station in Georgia. On the surface, it looked like an error, a dropped signal. But underneath, there was data. Live stream packets. Audio encrypted on loop. Tanisha leaned in, listening. A voice. Familiar. Prepare transfer. Nightfall. Orchid priority. She didn't breathe. It was him. Hawk. They traced the signal to an airstrip outside Macon. Private. Unlicensed. They arrived just before dusk. A hangar. A truck. 2 men armed. A third figure in shadow talking to a pilot. Tanisha drew her weapon. The team fanned out. No time for negotiation. The truck's doors flew open. 2 girls, barely 15. One tried to run. Tanisha caught her mid-sprint, wrapping her in her arms, whispering, "You're safe. I promise." Gunfire erupted near the hangar. Vargas took a shot to the shoulder but stayed standing. Rivera dropped one of the guards. Nicole disarmed the pilot. But Hawk was already gone. Again. Back at HQ, Tanisha stood in front of the evidence board, blood on her sleeve, her jaw tight. "This isn't working," Vargas said. "We're always a step behind." "No," she whispered. "We're just not cutting deep enough." She grabbed a marker and circled a name from an old report, a judge. Connected to 6 fast-tracked deportations. She circled a second name, a charity director. Linked to a foster network with misfiled intake records. She circled a third, an agent. Former field. Transferred. Now desk. 3 circles. 3 insiders. Tanisha stepped back. There's our leak. They moved fast. Arrests were made at dawn. The judge confessed first, offered names, money trails, offshore accounts. The agent denied everything until confronted with emails. Then he cried. But the charity director? He ran. They caught him in a hotel room with 5 burner phones and a list of coordinates. And one name. Hawk. The coordinates pointed to a warehouse in Delaware. Not a safe house. A hub. Surrounded by woods. No road in. No cameras. They planned the raid in silence. No warrant delay. No leaks. No mercy. Tanisha wore a vest. Carried 2 weapons. And a promise in her chest. They arrived at dawn. Fog clung to the trees like old regret. They breached the door. Girls screamed. Men ran. Gunshots filled the air. Tanisha moved like a shadow through the chaos, clearing one room after another. Then she saw him. Hawk. At the far end of the hall. Walking casually. He turned once, smirked, and disappeared behind a steel door. She chased him. Down a corridor. Into a chamber filled with lights. And files. And memories. He waited at the far end, hands up. I was wondering when you'd catch up, he said. Tanisha aimed. On your knees. He grinned. Full circle, huh? She didn't blink. You know what's funny, he said. You could kill me right now. But there are 10 more like me. 20. You stop one branch, another grows. I'm not here to prune, she said. I'm here to burn the forest. He charged. She shot. Once. Twice. He dropped. And the room was silent. The girls were evacuated. The files secured. The raid made national news. But Tanisha didn't speak at the press conference. She was at home. On the couch. Amara asleep in her lap. Watching the sunrise. And this morning. It felt different. It felt like a beginning. For the first time in a long time, silence didn't feel like a threat. Tanisha Cole stood by the window of her apartment, bathed in the soft light of early morning. Her reflection in the glass looked older. Not tired, but carved. Like the ocean had worn something smooth and sharp out of her. Her hair was pulled back. Her posture was firm. But inside her chest, something was shifting. Amara stirred behind her on the couch. A blanket half covering her, the stuffed panda squished against her cheek. The little girl had finally slept through the night, no nightmares, no crying fits. Just sleep. Honest, uninterrupted sleep. Tanisha had held her the whole time, listening to her breathing, wondering if that was the sound that kept her grounded, proof that the world, for now, had paused. But the world doesn't stay paused for long. Her phone buzzed. It was Nicole. Orchid system integrated. Hawk database migrated to FedNet. You need to see this. Tanisha turned back toward the cityscape and sighed once, just once, then headed to shower, dress, and meet the rest of her life head-on. The new command center wasn't in the old bureau building anymore. They'd moved it discreetly to a private floor inside a repurposed federal telecom tower outside Arlington. The public thought it was still a weather research lab. The reality was far more precise. Inside, the Orchid unit was in full bloom. Rows of screens lined the walls. Real-time facial recognition. Flight pattern algorithms. Cargo shipping manifests cross-referenced against missing persons. Every second, something blinked, something tracked. Nicole sat at the core station, eyes focused, fingers flying. Something's off, she said when Tanisha entered. Vargas looked up from a spread of case files. His left shoulder was still stiff from the shot he took in Macon, but he refused to rest. We traced Hawk's offshore accounts. Most were dummies, but 3 were active. And one of them moved $1 million last night. Tanisha frowned. To where? Nicole pulled it up. Cayman Islands. Then bounced through 7 countries. Final destination, a non-profit account in D.C. A non-profit, she said. Which one? Nicole didn't answer. She just turned the monitor. Tanisha's stomach tightened. The Harlan Justice Initiative. A supposed social advocacy group that had testified before Congress last year about the need for community-based trafficking reform. She remembered the speech. Polished. Emotional. The founder, a tall, middle-aged man with silver hair and a charming southern drawl, had spoken with such conviction that even she had believed him for a moment. His name was Elliot Crane. And now his name was linked to Hawk's final transaction. Pull everything, she said. Emails. Travel logs. Donations. Meetings. Nicole didn't hesitate. By the time night fell, they had enough evidence to know what their gut had already told them. Crane wasn't a sympathizer. He was a partner. The meeting with Director Orson the next morning was tense. I don't care how good your hunch is, he said. Crane is politically bulletproof. You bring me concrete evidence or we don't move. Tanisha stared him down. I've stood in a room full of crying children, sir, she said. I don't need bulletproof. I need clearance. He tapped a pen against the desk. You want to follow the money, fine. But you do it by the book. No more cowboy work. You go off record again and I'll cut your funding. Understood. She stood to leave, then turned back. Sir? Yes. If he's clean, I'll walk away. But if he's not, I won't stop at his suit. The next 2 weeks were a war of whispers. The Orchid team watched Crane's every move. His non-profit hosted gala dinners, fundraisers, private briefings with senators. He smiled in every photo, talked about rehabilitation, carried himself like a man building bridges. But behind the facade, a different image took shape. One night, Nicole cracked into a private server linked to a cloud drive under his organization's umbrella. Inside were voice memos. One caught Tanisha's ear. Crane's voice. Smooth. Chilling. We lose Hawk, we wait. Let the outrage fade. There's always another route. Another product. America forgets fast. Product, he'd said. They weren't rescuing girls. They were cataloging them. They needed a sting. Vargas arranged a meeting through an intermediary posing as a logistics consultant with ties to Eastern Europe. The bait? A fictional pipeline of refugees needing transport and shelter. Crane bit. The meeting was set in a private room at a luxury hotel downtown. Tanisha wired up. She wore a dark green dress, heels that pinched slightly, and a necklace with a hidden transmitter. Her hair was down, her expression calm. She entered alone. Crane stood when she arrived. Held out his hand. Miss Evans, I presume, he said, using her alias. She nodded. You're taller than I expected. He smiled. And you're exactly as smart as they told me. They sat. He ordered wine. She let him talk. About logistics. Discretion. Opportunity. He mentioned packages. He never said children. But he didn't have to. Tanisha let him talk just long enough. Then, with the faintest flick of her wrist, she activated the signal. Within seconds, the room flooded with agents. Crane's smile fell apart. You have no idea who I am, he hissed. Tanisha stood slowly. Oh, I do, she said. You're the kind of man who counts screams as currency. He was arrested without resistance. But his eyes never looked afraid. Only annoyed. Back at the Orchid Command Center, they celebrated quietly. No champagne. Just silence. Nicole cried. Rivera exhaled. Vargas, despite the pain in his shoulder, grinned. Sam just watched from the corner, his arms folded, eyes unreadable. Tanisha approached him. You okay? He nodded. Then, in a whisper, does it end now? She paused. No, she said. But it gets harder to hide. The media exploded. Justice advocate accused of trafficking ties. Non-profit hero or hidden villain? Crane was everywhere. News anchors debated whether he was misunderstood or monstrous. But Orchid had receipts. And this time, America didn't look away. One night, Amara sat at the kitchen table, drawing. Tanisha cooked in the background, still in her blazer, shoes off, hair messy. Amara held up her drawing. Look, Mama. It was a stick figure. Wearing a cape. And handcuffs. Who is it? Tanisha asked. You, Amara said proudly. You catch the bad guys. Tanisha knelt beside her. Tears pricked her eyes. Not from the praise, but from the fact that her daughter still believed in heroes. Do I have a cape? She asked. Amara grinned. No, but you don't need one. That night, Tanisha dreamed. She was back at the gas station. But this time, when the officers approached, she didn't kneel. She stood. And they stopped. And behind them, 100 girls stood too. Not in fear, but in fire. She woke up before sunrise. Made coffee. Sat by the window. The city was quiet. But inside her, a storm was calm for the first time. Not because the work was done, but because she finally believed she could finish it. The sound of shoes echoing down the federal courthouse hallway felt heavier than usual. Tanisha Cole walked with purpose, but not speed. This wasn't a raid. This wasn't a sting. This was something colder, slower, and in some ways, harder. A courtroom wasn't built for justice. It was built for procedure. And today, procedure would determine whether the truth meant anything at all. It had been 3 months since the arrest of Elliot Crane. 3 months of sifting through forged contracts, manipulated donation records, rerouted funds, and sealed testimony from girls who had seen too much to ever sleep peacefully again. 3 months of politics trying to bury what her team had dragged into the sun. The prosecution had done its job barely. The defense, funded by a war chest of dark money, had used every delay tactic in the book. Painted Crane as a victim of bureaucratic overreach. An innovator misunderstood. A man who had only tried to fix a broken system and been attacked for it. They said he never touched a child. They said he wasn't responsible for what his donors did behind his back. They said the FBI had a vendetta. Tanisha would testify today. She had waited for this. She took the stand before noon. Her badge glinted under the courtroom lights. The prosecutor, a sharp-eyed woman named Daria Kensley, stepped forward. Calm, collected. "Agent Cole," she began, "can you state your full name and title for the record?" "Tanisha Cole," she said. "Special Agent, Federal Bureau of Investigation. Currently assigned to the Orchid Task Force." "Agent Cole, what is Orchid?" "A federal initiative targeting human trafficking infrastructure within the United States, specifically involving minors and transnational coordination." "Were you involved in the investigation that led to Mr. Crane's arrest?" "I led it." "Did you personally witness Mr. Crane engage in any trafficking?" "No." A murmur. "But you arrested him. Why?" "Because trafficking doesn't always look like handcuffs and locked doors. Sometimes it wears a suit and smiles for the camera." Kensley paused. "Explain." Tanisha leaned forward slightly. Elliot Crane ran a non-profit that accepted millions in donations from shell companies tied to known traffickers. He used that money to fund transport, housing, and forge documentation. He did it under the guise of advocacy. But every piece of his infrastructure fed directly into the trafficking machine. The routes, the safe houses, the laundering, the obfuscation of identities. She continued, voice steady. Crane didn't need to lock children in rooms. He built the rooms and handed out the keys. The courtroom fell silent. Kensley nodded. No further questions. Then came the defense. A tall man in a tailored suit named Monroe. His voice was gentle, almost condescending. "Agent Cole," he said, "you're clearly passionate about your work." She said nothing. "You've risked your life. We've all seen the footage from the Jacksonville incident." Still silence. "You have a daughter, correct?" "Yes. She's 6 now. 7. And I imagine that informs your perspective, perhaps adds a personal lens to your interpretation of certain situations." Tanisha smiled slightly. "Are you implying motherhood makes me emotional?" Monroe coughed. "I'm simply saying people with families often carry added motivation." "Do you have children, Mr. Monroe?" "No." "Then don't talk to me about what it means to protect one." He stiffened. "Let's return to Mr. Crane. You said he built the rooms, yet you never found a single child in his personal custody. Correct?" "Correct. No DNA, no fingerprints, no location logs." "All true. Then how can you be certain he was involved?" She leaned back. "You ever seen a spider, Mr. Monroe?" He blinked. "I'm sorry. A spider doesn't chase flies. It builds a web, waits, feeds off what gets caught. You think because Crane didn't push a child into a van himself that he's not guilty? He is the web." Murmurs again. The judge banged the gavel once. "Order." Monroe's tone darkened. "Do you have personal animosity toward my client?" "Yes," she said without flinching. "I hate what he stands for. But I don't fabricate evidence. Everything we've submitted is real. You don't have to like me. You just have to believe the girls who were thrown away like trash while your client threw fundraising galas." He stepped back. No further questions. She stepped off the stand without looking at Crane. But she felt his eyes. Mocking. Calm. As if he still believed he'd win. That night, she went home to Amara. Made grilled cheese. Watched a movie. Laughed. But the tension didn't leave her chest. Because she knew too well, the courtroom didn't heal. It judged. And justice didn't always come with a gavel. 3 days later, the verdict came in. Not guilty. On all federal counts. The courtroom burst into chaos. Protesters screamed outside. Tanisha sat still. Crane turned. Smiled at her. That same smug, silk-suited smirk. She didn't blink. Didn't scream. Just stood. And walked out the back door. That night, Nicole called. "We have a problem," she said. "What?" One of the jurors posted on an anonymous forum. Said they were pressured. Said they had doubts. By who? "We don't know. But get this, the foreman? His daughter just got accepted into a high-level arts academy in France, funded by a new nonprofit." Tanisha's voice dropped. "Crane." "Worse," Nicole whispered. "He's not alone." It was the moment the mission changed. Again. This wasn't about a ring anymore. It was about rot. Deep rot. Inside the courts. The agencies. The nonprofits. The donors. Crane had just shown them what real power looked like. Not bullets. Not cages. Influence. Discretion. Privilege. Tanisha didn't return to work the next day. She went for a run instead. 6 miles. Sweat pouring. Anger blistering. And when she got home, she made a decision. She pulled out the old USB drive from the Hawk case, scrolled past the folders, found a line in a financial transfer, MS 3428 Orchid Hold. She'd never traced that code. It wasn't federal. It wasn't Hawk. It was something older. She called Nicole. Pull every file labeled MS 3428. Check for early Orchid mentions pre-task force. There was silence on the other end. Then Nicole said, Agent Cole, you're not gonna like this. Try me. MS 3428 isn't a file. It's not. It's a location. Tanisha frowned. Where? Nicole's voice dropped. Langley. They drove there at night. A marked car. No plates. Nicole hacked the access logs. Rivera posed as an air conditioning inspector. Sam stayed behind, too risky. They entered through sublevel 3. Storage rooms. Dusty records. Hard copies no one had digitized. Until Nicole found the file box. Orchid. Dated 2002. Tanisha flipped through pages. Old names. Old programs. CIA co-signatures. Then she saw it. Crane. Back then? He wasn't a donor. He was a contractor. Working PSYOPs in Panama. Covering extraction programs. Money. Movement. Manipulation. He didn't build Orchid, Tanisha said slowly. He inherited it. Back in the car, no one spoke. Finally, Vargas said, this is bigger than we thought. Tanisha nodded. We're not chasing spiders anymore. Then what? Nicole asked. She looked up. We're burning down the web. The next morning, she found her desk cleared. Official notice, her clearance was under review. Internal affairs. No warning. No hearing. Just silence. The bureau was pushing her out. They'd gotten too close. That night, she stood in Amara's room, watching her sleep. And for the first time in years, she was scared. Not of dying, but of losing the truth. Letting it disappear. So she made another decision. She called a reporter. Anonymous line. Burner phone. And she told the story. All of it. Names. Dates. Photos. Locations. She didn't care about protocol anymore. If they weren't going to protect the girls, she would protect the truth. 2 days later, a story broke in the Washington Ledger. The secret legacy of Project Orchid. It went viral in hours. More outlets picked it up. Whistleblowers emerged. Agents stepped forward. And suddenly justice wasn't a courtroom. It was the court of public fire. Crane's nonprofit lost its license. The Bureau issued a public audit. Congress called for a hearing. Tanisha wasn't asked to attend. She showed up anyway. With the truth. With scars. With names of girls no one else would say aloud. And for once, they listened. The storm had passed. Not in the weather, but in the world around her. 3 weeks after the expose in the Washington Ledger, Tanisha Cole sat in the gallery of a packed congressional hearing room. Rows of faces stared forward, lawmakers, journalists, survivors, agents, analysts. The walls echoed with the click of cameras and whispered commentary. But the floor was steady. The air expectant. The woman at the podium was not Tanisha. It was a girl. 19. El Salvadoran. A former victim. A survivor of a rout funded by one of Elliot Crane's donors. Her voice trembled, but her spine stayed straight. They said if I told, no one would believe me. They were almost right. A pause. Then she glanced over to where Tanisha sat, hands clasped in her lap. But she believed me. The room was silent. Somewhere behind her, a senator cleared his throat. A man adjusted his tie. Someone dabbed their eyes. But Tanisha didn't move. Because her chest felt too full. Too raw. Too seen. For years, she had fought behind glass. Watched from the shadows as justice slipped through cracks. Burned herself to give others warmth. Bit her tongue as cowards rose and heroes bled quietly. But not today. Today, she heard the truth spoken by the voice that mattered most. The voice of the saved. The Bureau didn't reinstate her. They didn't fire her, either. Instead, they offered her a special consultant role, external, off-payroll, diplomatic. A title without teeth. A ghost with a badge. She refused. Respectfully. And walked away. Her home became her headquarters. She converted the spare room into an office. Maps on the wall. Timelines taped to the glass. A corkboard with pins and string and faces that no one else wanted to see again. Nicole went private. Started a data consultancy that offered protection to activists and whistleblowers. Vargas took early retirement. Spent more time with his wife. Sent Tanisha encrypted intel when he came across anything useful. Rivera stayed inside the machine. Said someone had to keep the door unlocked from the inside. Sam finished his GED. Started night school. Sent her a message once. They wanted me to stay broken. You didn't let me. I won't waste it. Tanisha replied. You never were broken. They just wanted you to believe that. The story didn't fade. Not quickly. More survivors stepped forward. Donors were investigated. Some fled the country. Others were arrested. One senator resigned. A judge was disbarred. But not everyone fell. Crane disappeared. No trace. No extradition requests. Rumors said he was living on a private island owned by a shell company linked to an old CIA logistics contractor. But Tanisha didn't chase that lead. She didn't need revenge. She needed change. And that had already begun. One afternoon, as spring broke the frost from the sidewalks, Amara came home from school holding a flyer. Mama, she said, we're doing a presentation about heroes. My teacher said I could pick anyone I wanted. Tanisha looked down. You want to talk about Harriet Tubman again? Amara shook her head. No. I want to talk about you. Tanisha froze. Honey. But Amara interrupted. You save people. You protect kids. You don't quit. That's a hero. Tanisha knelt down, brushing her daughter's cheek with her thumb. I'm just a woman trying to do the right thing. Amara grinned. That's what heroes do. A few months later, Tanisha gave her first public talk. A nonprofit called her One, run by survivors, not donors. They didn't want a speech. They wanted her story. She walked on stage to modest applause. No media. No glamour. Just rows of folding chairs and people who had suffered more than most would ever know. She didn't read from notes. She didn't wear the badge. She wore a white blouse, black pants, and a scarf her daughter had given her that morning. Soft green with tiny gold stars. She spoke slowly. There was a time, she said, when I believed if I just followed the rules hard enough, I could fix things. But the system was never built for justice. It was built to protect those already safe. She paused. Real justice doesn't live in a courtroom. It lives in the choices we make when no one's watching. And she ended with this. I'm not here to be thanked. I'm not here to be applauded. I'm here to say, if you survived, if you're still standing, you are the proof that monsters don't win. They stood. And clapped. Some cried. Not for her. But for themselves. Because someone had finally said the thing they always needed to hear. That the fire didn't destroy them. It revealed them. Tanisha began writing. Not articles. Not books. Letters. One for every girl whose name she had memorized. Some were never mailed. Others were sent anonymously. Always with the same final line. You are not what they did to you. One day she returned to the gas station. The same one where it all began. The pumps had been upgraded. The signage changed. But the corner where she had been forced to kneel? Still there. Still cracked from the pressure of a boot and a moment that nearly ended her. She sat on the curb. Just for a while. People came and went. No one recognized her. No one remembered. Except her. She didn't cry. She didn't smile. She just placed one hand flat on the concrete. And whispered, you didn't win. Amara turned 8. She asked if they could go on a road trip. Tanisha agreed. They drove down the coast, music loud, snacks spilling in the back seat. They stopped at gas stations, museums, parks. Just a mom and her kid. No wires. No guns. No codes. One night, they stayed at a motel near Savannah. Amara asked for a bedtime story. Tanisha hesitated. Then said, you want to hear a true one? Her daughter nodded. So she told her. About a girl who grew up in a city where people didn't always see her. About the things she learned. The things she lost. The job that almost broke her. The truth that saved her. And the daughter who reminded her why she fought. When she finished, Amara said, that's a good story. Tanisha tucked her in. It's not over, she said. Amara smiled. Good. I want more. Back home, the world spun on. New crises. New headlines. But people remembered. Not all. But enough. Enough to keep asking the right questions. Enough to believe survivors. Enough to make change hurt. One day, a freshman congresswoman read from Tanisha's testimony during a floor speech. Another day, a training program named its Child Protection Initiative after her. They called it the Cole Protocol. She didn't attend the ceremony. But she watched the livestream. And when they read the dedication to those who rise even when the system kneels on their back, she placed a hand over her heart. And let herself cry. Years later, long after the spotlight dimmed, a book would be published. Written by Sam. Title, Burn the Web, How One Woman Changed Everything. The dedication was simple. For Agent Tanisha Cole, who saved my life. And never asked for thanks. In her backyard, under a wide oak tree, Tanisha would sometimes sit at sunset, tea in hand, legs crossed, hair streaked with gray now. Amara, older, taller, bolder, would sit across from her, asking questions about life, love, and when it was right to fight. And Tanisha would answer honestly. Always. Because she knew the most powerful thing she could give her child wasn't protection. It was truth. Her story didn't end in handcuffs. Or bullets. Or trials. It ended with legacy. With proof. That courage doesn't roar. It shows up. Every day. Quiet. Unyielding. Like a mother walking through fire just to bring others home. Sometimes the ones who protect the most are the ones who get hurt the deepest. Tanisha Cole's journey reminds us that real justice isn't handed down from a courtroom, it's built through courage, sacrifice, and unwavering belief in human worth. Her story is a testament to the power of one voice standing firm against a system that too often stays silent. If Tanisha's story moved you, don't let it stop with you. Like to honor every silent hero who never gave up. Share to make sure the story is heard by someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe for more true, powerful stories the world can't afford to forget. Your support helps keep these voices alive.